Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. The tallest trees catch the most wind. This ancient proverb holds a haunting truth. Greatness often comes with a storm. For those labeled as chosen ones, the spotlight is not a gift, it's a double-edged sword. While the world marvels at their brilliance, an undercurrent of resentment bubbles just beneath the surface, ready to strike at any sign of weakness. Here's a fact that might surprise you. A 2021 study found that people are more likely to dislike those they perceive as exceptionally successful because it threatens their own self-esteem. That's right. Being amazing can make you a magnet for unwarranted hate. It's not personal, it's psychology. Well, unless you're out there actually stealing people's parking spots, then it's personal. Why is it that those who rise above the rest often find themselves pulled down by the very people watching? Let's unravel the uncomfortable, messy, and sometimes downright bizarre reasons why chosen ones attract the most hatred. Spoiler: it has more to do with human nature than anything they've actually done. Number 1. Exposing others' inadequacies. The chosen ones have a way of making people uncomfortable, and it's not because they're trying to. Their existence alone can feel like an unspoken challenge. When someone excels, their success naturally sets a new standard, one that forces others to reflect on their own choices, abilities, and limitations. For many, this reflection is unbearable. It's easier to hate someone for being extraordinary than to admit you've been coasting or avoiding hard truths about yourself. People don't hate the chosen ones for their success. They hate what that success reveals. It shines a glaring spotlight on others' complacency, wasted potential, or lack of effort. It's like standing next to a person in peak physical shape. Suddenly, every skipped workout or unhealthy meal feels like it's written across your forehead. That discomfort turns into resentment because blaming the chosen one feels safer than confronting the mirror they hold up to the world. It doesn't help that chosen ones often possess a talent or quality that seems effortless. To those looking in from the outside, it's infuriating. How do they make it look so easy? People think without realizing the years of hard work, sacrifice, and struggle that usually go unseen. That disconnect, the illusion of effortlessness, only deepens the resentment. What's worse, some people feel a strange entitlement to dislike the chosen ones simply because they seem too perfect. Instead of inspiration, they spark frustration. Instead of admiration, they invite criticism. Why? Because it's easier to tear someone down than to rise to their level. The chosen ones don't just excel, they expose. And what they expose is often what others would rather keep hidden. At number 2, breaking the status quo. Chosen ones are natural disruptors, whether they intend to be or not. Their presence alone shakes things up, and for many people that's an unforgivable offense. They don't fit into the existing order. They rewrite it, often without asking permission. For those clinging to the status quo, this isn't just uncomfortable. It's threatening. People thrive on predictability, even when it's not ideal. The familiar feels safe, and when someone comes along who defies expectations, breaks unspoken rules, or challenges traditions, it stirs up fear and resentment. The chosen ones aren't just seen as individuals, they're seen as catalysts for change. And change, even when it's necessary, often feels like chaos to those unprepared for it. Their rise can make others feel obsolete. The skills, ideas, or systems that used to work suddenly seem outdated in comparison to what the chosen one brings to the table. This forces people to adapt or risk being left behind. Instead of embracing growth, many lash out. It's easier to villainize the one who's pushing boundaries than to admit you're stuck in your ways. The chosen ones also have a knack for attracting polarizing opinions. They inspire loyalty in some and hostility in others simply because they disrupt the balance. They force a reevaluation of what's possible, what's fair, and what's deserved. And for those who've grown comfortable with the way things are, even if the way things are is mediocre, this feels like a direct challenge to their worldview. It's not that chosen ones seek to dismantle the system. Their very existence does it for them. They represent what's new, what's better, and what's next. And for those clinging to the past, there's nothing more threatening than someone who seems destined to leave it behind. Number 3, Unwanted responsibility as a symbol. Chosen ones rarely ask for the role they're given. More often than not, they're thrust into a position where they become symbols of something larger than themselves. Whether it's a cause, an ideal, or a movement, they end up representing something people either idolize or despise. And that's where the hatred begins, because symbols are easier to hate than people. When someone becomes a symbol, they stop being seen as a person with flaws, fears, and complexities. Instead, they become a target. People project their frustrations, biases, and anger onto them whether or not they deserve it. If the chosen one represents hope, then those who've grown bitter toward hope will attack them. If they symbolize change, then anyone afraid of change will lash out. It's not about who they are. It's about what they stand for, or what people think they stand for. This unwanted responsibility can be suffocating. The chosen one didn't ask to carry the weight of people's dreams or fears, but they have no choice. Every decision they make is scrutinized as if it holds the fate of the world, and every misstep is treated like a betrayal. People don't want their symbols to falter, so when the chosen one inevitably does, the backlash is vicious. To make matters worse, some people hate the chosen one simply because they resent the idea that anyone should stand above the crowd. The symbolism feels like a slap in the face, a reminder of their own perceived insignificance. They don't hate the person, they hate what they represent, a reminder that they aren't chosen. In the end, the chosen one becomes a lightning rod for everything people fear, hope for, or hate about themselves. And it's not a role anyone would willingly sign up for. Number 4. Perceived undeserved spotlight. The idea of the chosen one often triggers a sense of unfairness in others, even when that person has earned every bit of their success. People struggle with the notion that someone might genuinely deserve to rise above the rest, so they look for explanations that diminish their accomplishments. It must be luck, they think, or they're just in the right place at the right time. This kind of thinking is comforting because it allows people to dismiss the hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance that went into that success. Favoritism is another common accusation. When someone stands out, it's easy to assume they're benefiting from special treatment rather than merit. Maybe they have connections, or someone in power just likes them more. This perception grows even stronger when the chosen one's rise seems unconventional or faster than expected. The narrative of favoritism conveniently erases their efforts and replaces them with suspicion. Then there's the intangible it factor, the charisma, the aura, or the natural talent that sets someone apart. While these qualities are real, people often use them as an excuse to justify their own envy. They were just born lucky, they tell themselves, ignoring the countless hours the chosen one likely spent refining their skills. That envy turns to animosity because it feels like a cheat code, a shortcut others believe they don't have access to. This perceived injustice creates a toxic cycle. People refuse to see the chosen one's journey for what it is, a combination of talent, effort, and opportunity. Instead, they focus on what they believe the chosen one doesn't deserve. The bitterness grows not because the chosen one has succeeded, but because others can't reconcile that success with their own feelings of inadequacy or missed chances. Number 5. Inescapable standards. Being the chosen one comes with a paradox. People elevate them to a pedestal so high that any misstep sends them crashing down with twice the force. The world doesn't just expect greatness from them, it demands perfection, and perfection, as everyone secretly knows, is impossible. Yet the moment the chosen one shows even a hint of imperfection, the same people who praise them are quick to label them a hypocrite or a fraud. This hatred often stems from unrealistic expectations. The chosen one is no longer seen as a human being with flaws, emotions, and vulnerabilities. Instead, they become an ideal, a symbol of everything people aspire to but can't achieve. When they inevitably fail to live up to these standards because no one can, the backlash is ruthless. It's as if their humanity is seen as betrayal. People hate being reminded that their heroes are just like them. It's unsettling to realize that even someone extraordinary can falter. That realization forces people to confront their own vulnerabilities, and instead of accepting it, they lash out. The chosen one becomes a scapegoat for the disappointment they feel in themselves. The weight of these expectations is crushing. Every decision, word, and action is scrutinized under a microscope. A single wrong move, a poor choice, a moment of weakness is amplified into proof that they never deserved their status in the first place. The chosen one isn't allowed to stumble. They're expected to always rise above. In the end, the hatred isn't really about the chosen one. It's about people's unwillingness to accept that perfection doesn't exist, that everyone is flawed, and that no one, not even the best of us, can carry the impossible burden of being everything to everyone. Number 6, resentment of privilege. The chosen one often becomes the target of resentment because their success is seen as a symbol of privilege. People look at their elevated position and assume they've had an easy ride to the top. Struggles, sacrifices, and setbacks are often dismissed or ignored entirely. Instead, the narrative becomes, "It must be nice to have it so easy," as if their achievements magically appeared without effort. This projection comes from a deep-seated frustration. Many people wrestle with their own struggles, financial hardships, lack of opportunities, or the feeling that life is unfair. When they see someone thriving, it's easier to believe that person had advantages they didn't, rather than confront the complexities of success. The chosen one becomes a convenient outlet for their frustrations. What makes this resentment particularly sharp is the assumption that privilege and struggle are mutually exclusive. People assume that if someone is successful or admired, they can't possibly know hardship. They forget that chosen ones often face their own unique battles, pressure to constantly perform, relentless scrutiny, and the emotional toll of being in the spotlight. But those struggles are invisible to outsiders, overshadowed by their perceived privileged status. This resentment is often laced with envy. People see what the chosen one has, but not what it took to get there. They focus on the rewards without considering the cost. Worse, they may dismiss the chosen one's efforts altogether, assuming their success was inevitable. This assumption isn't just unfair, it's dehumanizing. The truth is, no one's path is easy, not even the chosen one's. But once privilege is assumed, people stop listening to their story. They reduce them to a stereotype, the lucky one who doesn't deserve it. And that resentment, fueled by projection and misunderstanding, becomes nearly impossible to overcome. Number 7. The fear of being overshadowed. The extraordinary have a way of unintentionally shrinking the world around them. When someone stands out, whether through talent, charisma, or sheer presence, it can leave others feeling diminished. It's not that they set out to overshadow anyone, but their brilliance creates a stark contrast, making others feel ordinary by comparison. For many, this isn't just uncomfortable, it's intolerable. This feeling of being invisible in the shadow of greatness sparks a deep, often unspoken fear. What if I'm not enough? It's a primal insecurity, one that whispers that their efforts, achievements, or even existence might go unnoticed because someone else is taking up all the space. Rather than confront this uncomfortable thought, many people respond with hatred as a way to reassert their own significance. Hatred becomes a defense mechanism. It's easier to attack the chosen one than to grapple with the unsettling idea that their presence makes you question your worth. By tearing them down, people create the illusion of leveling the playing field, even if only in their own minds. It's not about fairness, it's about self-preservation. What makes this dynamic especially toxic is that the chosen one often doesn't even realize the effect they're having. They're just being themselves, focused on their own journey, unaware of the resentment building around them. Yet, their very existence becomes a reminder to others of what they're not: faster, stronger, smarter, more successful. In the end, the fear of being overshadowed isn't really about the chosen one at all. It's about the insecurities they unintentionally magnify in others. Greatness has a way of revealing gaps, and for those who aren't ready to face them, hatred becomes the easiest way to cope with the shadow they feel trapped in. At number 8, challenging deep-rooted insecurities. The chosen one doesn't need to say a word or do anything to spark an emotional earthquake in others. Their very presence, their accomplishments, their effortless shine forces a confrontation with the uncomfortable truth. What am I doing with my life? For many, this is more than just a passing thought. It's a deep, gut-wrenching question that hits at the core of their self-worth. Instead of embracing this discomfort, it's easier to deflect it, and that's where the hatred begins. When someone extraordinary enters the picture, they inadvertently become a mirror, reflecting the areas in others' lives where they feel insufficient, stagnant, or unfulfilled. The chosen one doesn't need to try to make people feel bad. It happens naturally. Their success shines a light on the doubts and missed opportunities others try so hard to ignore. But instead of looking inward and addressing their own insecurities, it's far easier to externalize those feelings and turn them into resentment toward the person who triggered them. Self-reflection is hard, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, and it forces people to face truths about themselves they'd rather keep buried. It's much simpler to point a finger and accuse the chosen one of being arrogant, lucky, or undeserving. In doing so, they deflect the uncomfortable work of questioning their own choices, their own path, and their own potential. The hatred isn't about the chosen one at all. It's about the internal conflict they provoke in others. Those who feel stuck or insignificant lash out because it's easier than confronting the quiet ache of inadequacy. Instead of being inspired to change, they channel their frustration into animosity, blaming the chosen one for the discomfort they feel in the face of their own unfulfilled potential. Number 9. Romanticized yet demonized. Being chosen is often viewed as a fairy tale, a story of effortless success and unending admiration. People imagine it's all about the fame, the accolades, the attention. They romanticize the idea of being the one everyone looks to, the one who has it all: talent, opportunities, and influence. It's the ultimate fantasy, a life filled with praise and ease. But when faced with the reality of what it truly means to be chosen, the story turns dark, and the romanticism quickly fades into resentment. The truth is, the chosen ones rarely get the luxury of living the perfect, carefree life people envision. Behind the shiny exterior, there's a constant weight they carry: the pressure to perform, the fear of failure, the loneliness of being placed on a pedestal. While others see them as untouchable, they're often isolated, disconnected from normal human experiences, and burdened by expectations that leave little room for vulnerability. The sacrifices they make, the relationships they sacrifice, the personal battles they endure, all of this is hidden from view. Instead, people only see the rewards and the outward appearance of success, and that's where the disillusionment begins. When the reality of the chosen one's life is exposed, when the blood, sweat, and tears they've poured into their journey become visible, it shatters the fantasy others have built. Suddenly, the image of the flawless, untouchable figure is replaced with a human being, with flaws, insecurities, and a price to pay for their success. That's when the romanticism turns to disdain. People are no longer fascinated by the dream, they're bitter about the sacrifices the dream demands. The chosen one has lived the story everyone wanted, but the price of that story feels too high. And so the very thing people once admired is now the thing they hate most. Number 10. The magnet for blame. When things go wrong, people need somewhere to direct their anger, frustration, or confusion. In times of crisis or failure, it's human nature to seek out a scapegoat, a person or entity to blame for everything that went wrong. The chosen one, often standing at the forefront of success or visibility, becomes the prime target for this collective venting. Their prominence makes them a lightning rod for all the problems others don't want to face or can't control. This tendency is rooted in the idea of fairness. When life feels unfair, when expectations aren't met or dreams are crushed, people are desperate to make sense of the chaos. It's much easier to blame someone at the top than to confront the messy, complex realities that might have led to failure. The chosen one, often seen as the embodiment of success, becomes the perfect focal point. Their achievements are exaggerated, and when things unravel, their failures or mistakes are magnified disproportionately. It doesn't matter if they're directly involved. Their status alone makes them the symbol of everything that's gone wrong. The chosen one also suffers from being the most visible figure. They've already been placed under a microscope, every move scrutinized, every word dissected. When things go south, this intense visibility turns into vulnerability. They become the face of disappointment, whether it's justified or not. People want to blame someone, and the chosen one's high position makes them an easy, visible target. This scapegoating isn't just about logic, it's about psychological comfort. It's much easier to blame a single person than to acknowledge the complexities and failures within the system or society as a whole. The chosen one becomes the embodiment of everything people wish had gone differently, and for that reason they bear the brunt of society's collective frustration. Number 11, haters crave what they despise. Hate often hides a deeper, more uncomfortable truth: desire. The people who loathe the chosen one are frequently those who secretly crave what they possess, whether it's their talent, their influence, or the admiration they receive. It's not always easy to admit, but hatred often stems from a place of envy. There's something about the chosen one's success or special qualities that makes others feel as if they've been left behind. Instead of recognizing this longing for something more, they channel it into disdain, convincing themselves that they hate the very thing they secretly desire. The hatred becomes a twisted form of self-defense. If they can convince themselves that the chosen one doesn't deserve what they have, then they don't have to face the discomfort of acknowledging their own unfulfilled dreams. It's easier to project bitterness than to confront the fact that someone else achieved what you've always wanted. Instead of admiring the chosen one's skills or opportunities, it feels safer to dismiss them as lucky, undeserving, or even arrogant. This way, the envious person can maintain their self-image and avoid the painful reflection of what they lack. The irony is that the hatred isn't really about the chosen one at all. It's about the person doing the hating. They don't actually hate the qualities the chosen one has. They hate the reminder that they don't have them. It's an expression of frustration with their own stagnation, a projection of their unmet desires. They'd rather tear down the person who represents their unachieved goals than face the uncomfortable reality that they could perhaps achieve them too. The hatred masks a yearning, and in the end, the person who hates may be the one who suffers the most, stuck in envy and denial, unable to recognize that what they despise is often what they want most. Number 12, fear of the unknowable. The idea of being chosen suggests something rare, something that can't be replicated or fully understood. It's not just talent or success. It's a sense of uniqueness that sets the chosen one apart in ways others can't easily explain. And this uniqueness often becomes a source of fear. People are naturally uncomfortable with what they can't categorize, what doesn't fit neatly into their understanding of the world. If someone stands out in a way that feels impossible to define, it challenges the frameworks people rely on to make sense of everything. This fear is primal. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of something beyond comprehension or control. When the chosen one's abilities or position are so far outside the norm, they become a threat to everything others hold familiar. They don't just break social norms, they shatter them. And when something is beyond understanding, it's easy to dismiss it as dangerous or threatening. Rather than explore or appreciate that uniqueness, people are more likely to react with hostility. It's a defensive mechanism, a way of protecting their worldview from something they can't make sense of. The hatred isn't truly aimed at the chosen one's qualities, but at the discomfort their uniqueness creates. Their success becomes less about admiration and more about the fear they inspire in others, the fear that what they've achieved is something that can't be replicated, something that will always remain just out of reach. The more unreachable the chosen one seems, the more the fear intensifies, morphing into resentment and hostility. It's easier to attack what you don't understand than to confront the unsettling idea that you may never understand it at all. In the end, the hatred isn't about the person, it's about the fear of the unknowable. The chosen one represents everything that challenges people's perceptions, and that challenge is too much to bear. The hostility is just the surface level of a much deeper unease, one that reflects our discomfort with what we can't control, define, or replicate. In the end, the hatred directed at the chosen one isn't really about them at all. It's a reflection of the insecurities, frustrations, and fears that simmer beneath the surface of those who feel overshadowed by greatness. The chosen one becomes the target, not because they've done something wrong, but because they've become a mirror, revealing the gaps others are afraid to confront in themselves. Whether it's the resentment of privilege, the fear of being overshadowed, or the frustration of facing an idealized version of success, the hatred is a defense mechanism against the discomfort of self-reflection. But here's the truth. Greatness, in whatever form it takes, is never as simple as it seems. The chosen one's journey is often riddled with sacrifices, struggles, and a loneliness that isn't visible to the outside world. The very things that make them chosen often isolate them in ways that others can't fathom. Their life may appear glamorous from the outside, but beneath the surface it's filled with challenges that most people don't see. So perhaps the next time we find ourselves harboring resentment or envy toward those who stand out, it's worth pausing and asking ourselves, what's really driving this? Is it their success? Or is it the uncomfortable reflection of what we wish we had? Because in the end, the hatred isn't about them. It's about us and how we choose to respond to the greatness we see in others. It's not the chosen ones who hold the power. It's us in how we choose to perceive them. And maybe, just maybe, if we stop resenting their rise, we might find the courage to rise ourselves. If you found yourself intrigued by this exploration of why the chosen ones attract so much hatred, then don't miss out on the next deep dive into the complexities of human nature, success, and everything in between. There's so much more to uncover, and you don't want to miss a single moment. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Join our growing community, where we challenge the norms, spark meaningful conversations, and maybe, just maybe, help you see the world through a new lens. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next, because this journey is only getting started. Subscribe now and let's dive even deeper together.